There is a question that has haunted every generation of seekers, merchants, and dreamers who ever walked this earth. Why does abundance seem to choose certain people the way sunlight chooses certain valleys, pooling there, staying there, multiplying there, while others stand in perpetual shadow, working twice as hard for half as much? I have spent the better part of my life sitting with that question. Not in libraries, not in lecture halls, but in the kind of small lamplit rooms where old men with long memories speak carefully, measuring every word the way a jeweler measures gold. What I uncovered across those decades did not come from any best-selling book or trending seminar. It came from a lineage, from a living chain of transmission that stretches back across centuries of wandering, persecution, loss, and, remarkably, stubbornly, renewal. My name is Ezriel, and my family comes from a long line of Kabbalistic teachers, rooted in the ancient communities of Safed, in the mountains of the Galilee. My great-great-grandmother Miravet was a woman who could not read, but who could walk into a marketplace with empty hands and return before sundown with everything her household needed. People in her village used to say she had a gift. Her children knew differently. She had a practice. A precise, deliberate, quietly radical practice that she had inherited from her own grandmother, who had inherited it from hers. That practice, at its core, involves 3 numbers, written in a specific sequence, placed in a specific location, activated by a specific declaration. Today I am going to share all of it with you. Before I do, I need you to understand something that most modern people resist understanding, because it contradicts everything we have been taught about how the material world works. We have been educated to believe that wealth is a strictly mechanical outcome. You input labor, strategy, and savings. You output money. If the output is insufficient, the fault lies in the inputs. Work harder, plan better, spend less. This model is not entirely wrong, but it is catastrophically incomplete, and its incompleteness is the reason so many brilliant, disciplined, hard-working people spend their lives scraping at the edges of the prosperity they deserve. The Kabbalistic tradition, specifically the strand of wisdom preserved in the school of Safed, developed by masters like Rav Cordovero and later refined by the holy Ari, teaches something far more nuanced. It teaches that the physical world is downstream of an invisible architecture, that before any coin changes hands, before any contract is signed, before any opportunity crosses your threshold, something must first move in the spiritual substrate beneath all material reality. The Hebrew word for this substrate is yesod, foundation. It is the hidden plumbing of existence. And just as a house can be structurally sound on the surface while rotting at its foundation, a person's financial life can appear functional on the outside while being spiritually blocked at the root. Numbers in this tradition are not abstract quantities. They are keys, frequencies, living forces encoded into the mathematical fabric of creation. The ancient teachers of Safed spent lifetimes mapping these frequencies, identifying which numerical combinations opened which channels of divine flow, and critically, discovering how those combinations could be inscribed into physical objects to create lasting points of contact between the seen and unseen worlds. What Miravet knew, and what I am about to teach you, is the precise trio of numbers that opens the channel of material abundance. Not luck, not positive thinking, not visualization. A real channel, operating according to real spiritual law, producing real results in the world you can touch and measure. Let me tell you about the first time I tested this knowledge for myself, because I think it will help you understand what you are actually dealing with here. I was 26 years old. I had left a stable position teaching in a yeshiva because I believed, with the recklessness of someone who has read too many books and lived too little life, that I was meant to build something of my own. Within 8 months, I had exhausted my savings. I was living in a borrowed room in a neighborhood of Jerusalem where the walls were thin and the winters were cold. I had a wife, Tzipora, and a daughter barely old enough to walk, and I had nothing to offer them except the stubbornness of someone who refuses to admit he has made a mistake. One evening, my uncle Nachman, a quiet, watchful man who had built and lost and rebuilt 3 separate businesses in his life, came to visit. He brought a bag of oranges. He sat across from me at the small table and he watched me for a long time without speaking. Then he reached into the inner pocket of his coat and pulled out a small leather wallet. worn to the color of dark amber, soft as old cloth. He laid it on the table between us. He said, "Your great-grandmother Miravet gave this to my father. My father gave it to me. I am giving it to you tonight because I can see that you are building the right thing in the wrong way." I opened the wallet. Inside, stitched carefully into the lining, were 3 small squares of paper. On each one, a single number had been written in dark, deliberate ink. Nachman spent the next 3 hours explaining what those numbers meant, where they came from, and how to activate them. By the time he left, it was past midnight, and I was sitting alone in the kitchen with my pen, 3 pieces of paper, and a clarity that felt almost physical, like a change in air pressure. I did exactly what he told me. I wrote the numbers. I spoke the activation. I placed them in my wallet with the only bill I had left, a worn, creased note that felt almost embarrassed to be there. 11 days later, a woman I had never met, a cousin of a former student who had heard me speak once at a Shabbat table 2 years before, contacted me. She had a small family business that needed restructuring. She had remembered something I had said about organizational clarity, and she wanted to hire me as a consultant. That single engagement led to 3 more. Those 3 led to a small firm. That firm over the following years became the foundation of everything I have built and everything I now teach. I am not telling you this to impress you. I am telling you this because I need you to enter the following instructions with the seriousness they deserve. This is not folklore. This is not spiritual entertainment. This is a technology, ancient and precise, and it responds to your intention the way a tuning fork responds to the correct frequency. Not to force, not to desperation, but to alignment. Let us talk about the 3 numbers individually, because each one carries its own distinct significance, and understanding them will strengthen your practice considerably. The number 18. In Hebrew, every letter of the alphabet carries a numerical value, a system called gematria that the Kabbalists use to reveal hidden layers of meaning within sacred texts. The 2 Hebrew letters that spell the word Kai, meaning life, vitality, living force, carry the values of 8 and 10, together, 18. But this is more than linguistic cleverness. The number 18 in Kabbalistic teaching represents the animating current that runs through all living systems. It is the frequency of growth, of movement, of things that are alive rather than inert. When you write 18 in the context of your financial life, you are declaring at a level deeper than conscious thought that your relationship with money is alive, that it breathes and moves and grows, that it is not a static, fixed, exhausted thing. Think for a moment about what the opposite of this feels like. The financial paralysis that comes from believing, consciously or not, that money is scarce, that the supply is fixed, that every dollar obtained is a dollar that someone else has lost. That is the energetic signature of financial death. The 18 inscription breaks it. It reintroduces vitality into a system that has been operating on the assumption of scarcity. The number 26. This is perhaps the most sacred of the 3. In Gematria, the letters of the divine name, the 4-letter name of God that the ancient teachers considered too holy to speak aloud, known as the Tetragrammaton, carry the values 6, 5, 10, and 5. The sum is 26. By writing 26, you are not being presumptuous. You are not claiming to summon the divine like a magician commanding a spirit. You are doing something far more humble and far more powerful. You are acknowledging the source. You are creating within the physical object of your wallet a point of connection to the understanding that all abundance, every resource, every opportunity, every unexpected windfall and quiet provision flows ultimately from a single inexhaustible source. The Kabbalists teach that the reason most people experience financial scarcity is not because the source is limited, but because their connection to the source has become blocked or forgotten. The 26 inscription is a restoration. It is a remembering. It reopens the line. The number 72. This is the most complex of the 3, and the one that tends to produce the most dramatic results. The Kabbalistic tradition identifies 72 distinct names or aspects of divine energy. Not separate gods or forces, but 72 facets of a single divine light, the way a prism separates white light into its component frequencies. Each of these 72 names corresponds to a different channel of blessing, a different quality of divine abundance flowing into the world. The number 72 written in your wallet does not invoke one of these channels. It invokes all 72 simultaneously. It is, if you can hold this image, like opening every window in a house at once and letting the full wind of abundance blow through unobstructed. Many people who have worked with the 18 and 26 inscriptions alone have found results that were real but sometimes narrow. Money coming from a single expected source. Opportunities arriving in familiar forms. When they add the 72, the range expands. Help arrives from directions they never anticipated. Connections form across distances. The fullness of the channel opens. Now, the practice itself. You will need 4 things, and I want to be specific about each one. First, a wallet that is whole and clean, not necessarily new. Old leather holds energy beautifully if it is well maintained, but not torn, not filthy, not falling apart. The wallet in this practice is functioning as what Kabbalists call a kli, a vessel. The teaching is absolute on this point. A broken vessel cannot hold blessing. If the vessel you are using is broken, you must repair it or replace it before you proceed. Second, a pen that writes in dark ink, black or very deep blue. In the Safed tradition, dark ink on white surfaces represents the emergence of form from potential. The way the letters of creation were understood to be black fire on white fire. The contrast matters. Do not use a fading pen, a pen that skips, or a pencil. The inscription must be clear and permanent. Third, 3 small pieces of paper, white, unlined, cut or torn cleanly. Each piece should be small enough to be folded once or twice and concealed inside the wallet without being immediately visible when the wallet is opened normally. This concealment is not arbitrary. We will return to why it matters. Fourth, a single piece of currency, a coin or a bill, any denomination. This functions as what the tradition calls zera, seed. The teaching underlying this is beautiful in its simplicity. Blessing does not rest on emptiness. Before the abundance can multiply, something must already be present. The seed money signals to the spiritual architecture of your wallet that it is already in operation, already receiving, already a vessel in active use. The timing of this practice is important, though I want to be honest with you. I have seen the practice work when performed at various times of day. That said, the tradition is specific, and if you are able to honor its specificity, you should. The optimal time is the period just before dawn, what the Safed teachers called Elot HaShachar, the rising of the morning star. This is described in mystical literature as a moment of unusual permeability, when the membrane between the spiritual and physical worlds is at its thinnest, and the channels of divine influence are most accessible. If you can wake before the sun and perform this practice in the quiet darkness just before the light comes, you are working with a natural advantage. If that is genuinely impossible for your circumstances, early morning, before you have eaten, before you have looked at your phone, before you have engaged with the noise of the day, is the next best option. What you want is a mind that has not yet been colonized by the day's anxieties, a mind that is still close to the state of openness that sleep produces. Here are the steps. Before you touch the pen or the paper, wash your hands. Not symbolically, not perfunctorily. Actually wash them with water. Right hand first, then left, then right again, alternating 3 times. In the Kabbalistic framework, this is a genuine energetic clearing, removing the residue of sleep and preparing the hands for intentional work. Dry them completely. Find a place where you will not be interrupted. Sit. Take several slow, full breaths. With each exhale, I want you to consciously release the anxiety, urgency, or desperation you may be carrying about money. This is perhaps the most important preparation, because the energy you bring into the inscription will be embedded in it. Fear written into sacred numbers produces fear-shaped results. Openness written into them produces open channels. You are not performing this practice because you are desperate. You are performing it because you are ready to receive what was always available to you. When you feel genuinely settled, not forced into calmness but actually quiet, take the pen in your dominant hand. Before writing the first number, speak these words quietly, with full attention. Let these marks carry the intention of life and sustenance. Let them serve as an open channel between the source of all provision and the vessel I am preparing. Now write the number 18 on the first piece of paper. Write it slowly. Watch each stroke as your hand forms it. As you write, hold the image of something alive, a plant growing, a current moving, breath entering and leaving a body. You are writing life into your financial vessel. Take the second piece of paper. Speak the same words again. Write the number 26. As you write, cultivate a feeling, not a thought, but an actual feeling of connection. Feel, however faintly, the sense that you are not alone in this effort, that there is a source, vast and unhurried, that has more than enough to provide what you need. Take the third piece of paper. Speak the words again. Write the number 72. As you write, let your imagination range freely. Picture abundance arriving from the north, the south, the east, the west, from expected directions and from directions you cannot currently foresee. All channels, all possibilities, fully open. Fold each piece of paper carefully and place them in hidden locations within your wallet. They should not fall out, should not be immediately visible, should not be something a casual observer would notice. The inner pocket, stitched into the lining, behind a card slot, wherever you can tuck them in a way that keeps them present but concealed. Place your seed currency in the wallet alongside the numbers. Hold the wallet in both hands. Hold it to your chest. Close your eyes and say, clearly and with intention, "This vessel is prepared. I am open to receive. Abundance flows to me through every channel, from every direction, in forms I expect and in forms I cannot yet imagine. All that was blocked is now free. All that was distant is now near. This is done. Open your eyes. The activation is complete." For the 7 days following this practice, keep the wallet with you. Do not leave it in a drawer. Do not leave it at home. Do not loan it to anyone. Keep it in contact with you, in your pocket, in a bag you carry, somewhere on your person through the day, and do not tell anyone what you have done. This instruction is not about superstition or secrecy for its own sake. It is a practical principle that the Safed masters articulated clearly. A blessing that is spoken before it has manifested is subject to the interference of skepticism, your own and others. The silence is a protection. Let the channel do its work without subjecting it to the abrasion of doubt. Within the first day or two, you may notice something subtle, a shift in your internal experience around money, a loosening of the tightness that chronic financial anxiety creates, a quiet sense of possibility where there was previously only dread. Do not dismiss this as wishful thinking. It is evidence that the channel has begun to open. Within the first week, most people who perform this practice correctly begin to see external movement, an unexpected call, a forgotten amount returned, an idea that arrives with unusual clarity and turns out to be actionable, a connection that forms seemingly at random but leads somewhere real. Pay careful attention to these movements, however small they seem. The tradition teaches that abundance tests your receptivity by arriving first in small forms. How you receive the small determines whether the large follows. Within 30 days, the pattern is typically well established. The character of your financial life changes not in a single dramatic burst, but in the quality of the flow, more consistent, more responsive to your efforts. There are 3 warnings I must give you, and I ask you to hold them seriously. The first concerns your motivation entering this practice. The Kabbalistic tradition carries a teaching, clear and non-negotiable, that the pursuit of wealth for its own sake creates a spiritual repulsion effect. The more frantically you grasp, the more elusive the thing becomes. If you perform this inscription while your heart is tight with desperation or hot with greed, you are not opening a channel of abundance. You are creating a distortion in the field that will manifest as increased friction, not decreased. Enter this practice from a genuine place of openness and trust, or wait until you can. The second concerns intention. These numbers carry real force. The tradition is unambiguous that real spiritual force responds to real spiritual intention, including negative intention. If your desire for financial gain involves taking what belongs to others, deceiving people who trust you, or benefiting from someone else's harm, the amplification of force that this practice produces will amplify the consequences of those choices in ways you will not enjoy. Keep your hands clean. Keep your business honest. The channel amplifies what already exists in you. The third concerns the physical dimension. I have encountered people who perform this practice and then, filled with a misplaced sense that the spiritual work was done, became passive. They waited. Abundance in this tradition does not fall from the sky into empty hands. It flows through natural channels, through your work, through your relationships, through your creative efforts, through your willingness to show up. The inscription prepares the vessel and opens the channels. You must still walk toward the water. Take action. Pursue the opportunities that arise. Say yes to the unexpected call. The spiritual and the practical are partners in this, not alternatives. I want to say something to those of you who came to this teaching carrying the weight of a long, discouraging history with money. Perhaps you have tried many things. You have read the books, attended the workshops, worked with budgets and intentions and vision boards, and the grinding persistence of someone who refuses to give up. And yet the breakthrough you hoped for has not come. Or it has come briefly and then retreated, like a tide that touches the shore and pulls back. I want you to hear this carefully. The failure of those methods was not a failure of your effort or your character. Those methods were working at the level of behavior and thought, which are the downstream effects of spiritual reality, not its cause. You cannot permanently change a river's flow by rearranging its surface. You have to go upstream. This is what the inscription practice does. It goes upstream. It addresses the root rather than the symptom. The people I have seen transform their financial lives through this practice. And over 4 decades, teaching in Jerusalem, in New York, in Sao Paulo, in Paris, the list is long. They were not people who lacked discipline or intelligence or effort. They were people who were working hard in the wrong layer of reality. When you work at the right layer, everything downstream changes. Not overnight, always. Though sometimes, yes, overnight. But with a consistency and a depth that no technique of thought or behavior can replicate. Because you are not managing effects. You are reshaping causes. You have now received what took my family 7 generations to preserve, and what I spent years quietly carrying before I understood that it was meant to be shared rather than hoarded. The numbers are 18, 26, and 72. The vessel is your wallet, prepared with clean paper and dark ink, and the seed of what is already present. The activation is your declaration, spoken with openness, in the quiet of early morning, with your hands freshly washed and your heart uncluttered by fear. The time is now if you are ready. Not tomorrow, not after you have thought about it for another week. Now. Because the information without the action is precisely nothing. And because the tradition has a word for the person who hears true wisdom and delays acting on it. Atel, the one who waits. And the teaching is not kind about waiting when clarity has already arrived. Go to your wallet, find your pen, find 3 pieces of paper, clear a quiet corner of your morning, and know, as you prepare to write, that you are not doing something new. You are joining a practice that has been alive for longer than any nation currently standing on this earth. You are reaching back across centuries to take the hand of those who discovered, through extraordinary difficulty, that the universe is not indifferent to human flourishing, that it is in fact built to provide it, if only we learn to open the channels through which provision flows. Miravet did this. Nachman did this. I have done this. And now, with your wallet in your hands and your pen ready, it is your turn. May the provision that flows to you be more than you need and generous enough to share. May the channels you open remain wide and clear. May the numbers 18, 26, and 72 serve as a living reminder that between you and abundance, there was never a wall, only a door you had not yet learned to open. The door is open now. Shalom.